and then we'll move on to our final speaker from the panel today, and that's Emma Robinson, who's our Coram Voice specialist advocate for children and young people with disabilities. Some of you will have benefited from Emma's excellent training and consultation, and for those of you who have not, please do take a look at the Specialist Advocacy Service section of our website, and you can look at for training opportunities, or also to contact Coram Voice and get some specialist advice from Emma if you need that. So yeah, over to you, Emma.
Hi everyone. Yes, so I'm Emma. I'm the Specialist Advocate for Children and Young People with Disabilities at Coram Voice. And I've been asked to just speak to you very briefly today about disabled children and young people who are missing out on advocacy support. So I prepared a really short talk, and then hopefully there'll be a little bit of time for questions at the end, but I know time's really tight. So, I mean, we're all aware, or lots of us are aware, that there can be issues with young people with disabilities who have a statutory right to advocacy, so looked after children and care leavers. We're all aware, or lots of us are aware, that there can still be problems with advocacy services offering a fully accessible service to disabled children, particularly if they need non-instructed advocacy. So if they're unable to talk about their wishes and feelings, or unable to understand their rights. Some advocacy services don't feel able to offer that service. It might be because of a lack of confidence or training or experienced staff, or an inaccessible referral route. Coram Voice do provide non-instructed advocacy and advocacy to young people with all sorts of different disabilities. And I suppose, just as an aside, I just wanted to reiterate really what Andrew is saying, is that if you are an advocacy service or know of an advocacy service that is struggling to provide that kind of support, you can get in touch with me. You can get in touch through the Specialist Advice Service page on our website. I do offer one-off free consultations with professionals, can also offer some limited free places on training. And after the last Always Heard seminar, I did reach out to one London in-house advocacy service that was struggling to provide non-instructed advocacy, and offered them some support. And since then, they've managed to put a really proactive service that does provide non-instructed advocacy and support to children with disabilities who are looked after or care leavers. However, that's not really what I wanted to talk to you about today. I wanted to talk to you about all of the disabled children and young people who would really benefit from advocacy support, who do have involvement with children's social care, but don't have a statutory right to advocacy in the first place. So they don't actually have any legal right because they're not looked after children or care leavers. So at the moment, looked after children and care leavers do have a right to advocacy, but lots of young people with disabilities are obviously not looked after. So just to give you an example, you might have a child with really complex or multiple disabilities that could include physical and learning disabilities, autism, communication impairments, but they could still live at home with their birth family with very limited short breaks or hours for direct payments, and they might attend a local specialist school as a day student. So where would that child's right to advocacy be? And unfortunately, the answer is they don't necessarily have one. So some councils with enough vision and enough funding do include that kind of support in advocacy contracts. So they do provide support for children who are not looked after but have disabilities to have advocates. But it's not a right. It really is discretionary at the moment in terms of the law. And so it's often missed out. And what we've effectively got is a bit of a postcode lottery for the children that aren't looked after but have disabilities. So I had a quick look through our own advocacy contracts in London and across the country and did a bit of an estimate. And I think that 40%, even among our own advocacy contracts, don't have a clear provision for advocacy for disabled children who are not looked after. These young people could still need considerable involvement from children's social care to thrive, but they just don't meet the threshold to be in care. And then when those children's rights are breached, particularly if they lack the capacity to understand their rights or to communicate their feelings, then they might be left without an independent advocate. So it's worth mentioning at this point that some people take the view that parents, teachers, support workers and other people in the child's life can take on the advocacy role. But I don't think that's realistic for other people to completely undertake that advocacy role. And just very briefly, the reasons are that an advocate is supposed to be purely the voice of the child's wishes and rights, so shouldn't be also caring for them and taking a best interest role. Also, an advocate should be a highly skilled professional who's able to navigate complex legal systems and rights and entitlements of social care. And we can't expect parents, carers and teachers to consistently be able to do that for children. That's not to say we shouldn't upskill everyone to understand disabled children's rights, but that's different to being a professional advocate. And then also, just in terms of parents, it can be exhausting to care for a child with a disability with very complex needs. You know, if you're providing round-the-clock care or supporting the child to stay out of harm's way, and a parent, for example, just might not have time to be an advocate. So I suppose at Coram Voice, for us, the dream is that every child with a disability should have that right to advocacy support if they're receiving a package of care from social care. And the question would be, what are we doing about this? So obviously, one of the things we want to do is just raise awareness. So that's why I'm here today. We're also fundraising so that we can provide projects and pilot projects to provide that support, to show what a difference it makes in disabled children's lives. And we've got applications in process at the moment, but also we did manage to do a small pilot project for a handful of children where we did support children with advocacy who wouldn't normally have a statutory entitlement but have disabilities. And as part of that project, I worked personally with a disabled child with complex needs to raise issues with social care about his care package at home and the fact that the family's accommodation was unsuitable and actually unsafe to meet that child's needs. And as part of that, also supported the child and parent to access legal advice. The outcome being that ultimately the care package was increased and the family did move to more suitable accommodation. So I'm going to call that child David, not his real name, and I'm going to give the last word of my presentation to David's mother. I just want to read to you the feedback that she wrote to me once I'd ended my involvement with David. So what she said was, David has benefited from Coram Voice's service so much. Coram has helped David move into more suitable accommodation with a garden and secured hours for care and a break with disability social services. David and his family have been going back and forth with social services for years, trying to secure the correct support to help David thrive despite his complex needs. His case was only listened to and taken seriously once Emma from Coram Voice stepped in. A difference in the response from social services was automatically noticeable in the way that we were treated and the law was correctly applied. Coram Voice made sure that David was obtaining his rights as a disabled child and talked up for David, giving him a voice that could be heard and acted on. The family were treated with dignity that we really mattered in the hardest of times. This service is what is needed and should be available to every child with additional needs. Without Coram Voice, David would not be where he is today, living closer to family, on the list for a better special needs school, and receiving care break hours to suit his needs. The only way that Coram Voice can improve their services is to be given extra funding to make sure that they're available to more disabled children. We as a family feel truly blessed that we were able to access this service when we really, truly needed to. So yeah, I find that really moving. And if we've got time for questions, Andrew will have to let me know, but I'd be happy to answer anything if there is time.
Yeah, we've got a few moments if anyone has any questions about the work that Emma has been doing on this one.
Okay.
I see Leanne. Leanne Hughes.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't get myself off mute. It wasn't really a question, it was just to say that we work for Barnardo's and we have benefited from Emma's training. So we did some non-instructed advocacy training a little while ago, and it's made all of us advocates a lot more confident in doing that work. And I think we've definitely seen an increase in non-instructed advocacy referrals as a result of that. So yeah, we can definitely recommend Emma's training to kind of give us the confidence to carry out that work.
Thanks, Leanne.
It's okay.
I was just going to ask, sorry, can I just ask, will there be information about the training somewhere? Because we do offer non-instructed advocacy, but our worker who's doing it is really new to disabilities, and she's learning so quickly and she's got the natural skills. But your training does sound amazing.
So yeah, there's information on the specialist advice service page on our website. I wonder if someone already posted a link.
It's been put on the chat. You'll see there's a link to the website. You can take a look there.
So you can get yourself on the waiting list for training. You can also, or your advocate can also book a half an hour one-off consultation with me if they're having any particular challenges.
That's what I was hoping you'd offer.
Yeah.
I'll get in touch with you.
No problem.
So many thanks to Emma. And yeah, this is a real area. It's clearly, as Leanne was saying, once you start doing this work, you get more referrals because people see that advocacy works. And I think it's a real, this is a group of young people who would really benefit from a more consistent and higher level of access to advocacy support.